When Ethan Hale opened his eyes, he saw only darkness and the faint glow of emergency panels scattered across the alien station. His head throbbed. His mouth was dry. The air smelled like burned metal and melted plastic. For a moment, he thought, he was already dead, drifting in the endless silence of space. Then the pain in his chest told him he was still alive. He tried to remember what happened. The battle, the panic, the screams over the comms, the aliens, his supposed allies, retreating while his station burned. They had promised protection. They had promised friendship. Yet when the enemy fleet closed in, they had pulled back and sealed the blast doors, leaving him behind. He staggered to his feet, one hand gripping the wall. The station groaned as if it too was wounded. Somewhere deep inside, a broken reactor hummed unevenly, sending shivers through the floor. Every few seconds, a flicker of light revealed the truth. The halls were empty. He was alone. The realization hit him like a physical blow. They had left him to die. The station had once been alive with voices, footsteps, and the constant chatter of alien technicians. Now it was a grave. Every sound Ethan made seemed too loud, his breathing, the scrape of his boots, the faint rustle of his jacket. Outside the walls, nothing but the vacuum of space waited, patient and eternal. He checked his wrist device. Oxygen, low. Food, almost gone. Power, critical. He had hours, maybe a day if he rationed everything. He could sit down and wait for death. But that thought made his chest tighten with rage. No, he would not give them the satisfaction. He forced himself to move, step by step, deeper into the broken station. His mind whispered a single question again and again. Why did they abandon him? He thought of the faces of the alien commanders, their strange calm when the battle began. He remembered their orders, hold the station at all costs. He remembered his trust, his willingness to risk everything, because he believed they saw him as an equal. But when danger came, they saw him only as expendable. His fists clenched. If this was to be his grave, then he would carve his name into its walls. Ethan reached the central control room. Panels were shattered, wires hung like vines, and one side of the chamber had been scorched by an explosion. Yet the main console still flickered weakly, half dead but not gone. He brushed dust from the screen and tried to activate it. The system resisted, alien code scrolling across in symbols he could barely understand. He had worked with them for years, but they had never shared their deepest secrets. Still, he was an engineer. His mind worked in patterns, in logic, in stubborn problem-solving. He bypassed 3 security locks. He forced a diagnostic scan. The results made his heart pound. The station still had a functioning core, damaged, unstable, but alive. Like him, it could be repaired. For the first time since waking, a spark of hope touched him. If he could restore power, maybe he could call for help. Maybe he could turn this betrayal into survival. But as he stared at the jagged alien script, another thought came. If he restored the station, why should he use it to beg for rescue? Why not use it to make them pay? Hours passed. Ethan scavenged what he could. Ration packs, half-charged power cells, scraps of wire. The emptiness of the station gnawed at him. He spoke aloud just to hear his own voice. Then came the sound. At first he thought it was his imagination, a faint clatter, like metal on metal, echoing down the hall. He froze. The station was supposed to be abandoned. Slowly he lifted a pipe. He had taken for protection and moved toward the noise. The corridor stretched long and narrow, lined with broken lights. At the far end, shadows shifted. His breath caught. Something moved again, quick and sharp. He raised the pipe, his muscles trembling, then silence. He waited, heart hammering. Nothing came. Perhaps it was just debris falling. Perhaps. But the sense of being watched lingered, crawling over his skin like ice. He backed away and sealed the control room door. Alone again, but uneasy. If the aliens left traps or drones, he could be hunted before he even began. The next day, he began work on the reactor. The chamber was blistering hot, filled with the smell of ozone and scorched circuits. One false move could vaporize him, but fear of death had dulled. He was already a dead man if he did nothing. Piece by piece, he stabilized the system, human tools in alien sockets, improvised fixes where advanced parts had failed. He whispered to himself as he worked, a mantra of determination. When the final connection clicked into place, the core pulsed. Lights roared back to life across the station, brighter than before. For the first time since betrayal, the halls glowed with power. Ethan stood in the center of the chamber, sweat dripping from his brow, and smiled. The aliens had left him to die. Instead, he had risen, and now, with power under his command, he would decide what came next. That night, as he sat in the control room, he forced himself to replay the last transmission from the alien commanders. Their cold words, their empty promises. He listened to their silence as the blast doors closed. He let the memory burn inside him, not as pain, but as fuel. This station was no longer theirs. It was his. Every circuit he repaired, every weapon he restored, would be a message. Humanity could not be discarded. Humanity could not be erased, and if they returned, if they dared to show their faces again, he would make them understand what one human could do when pushed beyond the edge. As he adjusted the console, a sudden alarm shrieked through the chamber. His head snapped up. The station had detected movement outside. A small ship was approaching. His breath froze in his lungs. Were the aliens coming back to scavenge what they left behind? Were they checking if he was dead? He looked at the blinking screen, then at the reactor's hum. The station was alive again. He was alive again, and he whispered to the empty air, his voice low and filled with fire. "Come closer. See what you left behind." The story of Ethan Hale was only beginning. The sound returned. Ethan froze in the middle of the corridor, his body tense, his breath sharp. The clatter of metal against metal rang again, echoing through the hollow station. This was no trick of his mind. Something was moving in the dark. He tightened his grip on the iron pipe he carried. His knuckles turned white. The alien station had been silent for hours, broken and abandoned, but now the silence was shattered. His heart raced as he turned his head slowly, searching every corner. The corridor stretched long and empty, yet the sound had been real. He whispered to himself, not out of fear, but to keep control. "You are not alone." The station was vast, a maze of steel and alien design. Ethan had mapped parts of it, but most sections remained unexplored. Whole wings were dark, lifeless, sealed off by collapsed bulkheads. Every door he opened revealed either twisted metal or empty rooms, stripped of value. But tonight, the emptiness felt different. Every flicker of light, every shifting shadow carried weight. He moved forward, slow and careful, his boots clicking against the floor. The emergency lights flickered red, painting the walls like blood. Pipes hissed softly, leaking steam into the air. His ears caught every detail, every hiss, every creak of stressed metal. Then the sound came again, this time closer. He stopped breathing. The noise was rhythmic, steady, like mechanical steps. Not human, not natural. Ethan backed into a side chamber and pressed himself against the wall. He lifted the pipe like a weapon, sweat sliding down his temple. The shadows at the far end of the corridor shifted again, but he saw nothing clear. A faint light glowed, moving slowly, scanning the walls. His stomach twisted. It was a drone. The aliens had left machines behind. He should have guessed. They never abandoned technology without purpose. The drones were hunters, guardians, and executioners. They were programmed to find intruders, to kill survivors, and to secure what the aliens valued. And now one of them was searching. The drone floated into view, sleek and insect-like, its body made of black alloy. Its single red sensor pulsed like an eye, thin arms unfolded from its sides, tipped with cutting tools. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He knew he couldn't fight it directly. His pipe would break against that armor. One wrong move and it would slice him apart. The drone scanned the corridor, humming softly. A beam of light swept the walls, crawling closer to the chamber where Ethan hid. He pressed against the shadows, forcing himself not to move, not to breathe. The beam slid across the doorway. It paused. Ethan gripped the pipe tighter. His muscles burned with tension. Then the beam moved on. The drone glided past, its sensor sweeping the hall. Only when it disappeared into the darkness did Ethan dare to breathe again. His lungs ached as air rushed in. His body trembled, but his mind sharpened. The station was not empty, and if there was one drone, there could be more. Ethan returned to the control room, sealing the door behind him. His thoughts ran fast, sharp as blades. The aliens had left him, with little food, little air, and no escape. But now he knew something else. They had left him with weapons. Drones were dangerous, yes, but they were also machines. Machines could be broken. Machines could be reprogrammed. He opened a console, scanning the station's power grid. A faint signal confirmed his fear. Multiple drones were active, scattered across the abandoned station, patrolling like silent predators. He clenched his jaw. If he wanted to survive, he couldn't hide forever. He would need to take control of the drones, but first he had to catch one. The next day, Ethan prepared. He armed himself with wires, broken circuits, and a portable power cell. His plan was dangerous, maybe impossible, but his training as an engineer gave him an edge. Machines followed logic. If he could outthink the drone, he could trap it. He chose a narrow maintenance corridor. Pipes lined the walls, leaking steam that hissed like snakes. He set his trap carefully, connecting wires to the power cell and attaching them to a broken bulkhead. One wrong connection, and he would electrocute himself instead. When the setup was ready, he waited in the shadows, pipe in hand. His chest rose and fell slowly, forcing calm into his body. Minutes passed. The silence grew heavy. Then came the hum. The drone appeared, floating closer, its red eye glowing in the mist. Ethan's pulse quickened. The machine scanned the walls, moving closer, closer to the trap. It paused. For one terrifying second, Ethan thought it had spotted him. Then it moved. Forward again, the trap snapped alive. Electricity burst through the corridor, sparks flying, arcs of light tearing across the walls. The drone jerked violently, its limbs twitching. Its red eye flickered. Then it fell, crashing to the floor, smoke rising from its body. Ethan rushed forward, his pipe ready. The drone twitched once more, then went still. He knelt beside it, his heart pounding with victory. For the first time, he had turned their creation against them. Dragging the drone back to the control room was a struggle. It weighed nearly as much as he did, its metal body resisting every pull. But Ethan's determination burned brighter than exhaustion. Once inside, he dismantled it carefully, spreading its pieces across the console. The alien tech was complex, filled with lines of strange code, but he recognized patterns. He recognized weaknesses. The drone's control systems were tied to the station itself. That meant the station was still alive in ways he hadn't realized. If he could break the code, he could override the programming. Hours turned into night. His hands blistered. From work, his eyes strained from screens. But at last, progress came. He forced the drone's systems to accept his commands. Its red sensor flickered back to life, now dim, awaiting orders. Ethan whispered, "You belong to me now." The drone obeyed. Days passed, each one filled with risk. Ethan hunted drone after drone, luring them into traps, disabling them, and dragging. their broken shells to his control room. Some fights nearly killed him. One drone cut his arm before he managed to fry it with a power surge. Another cornered him in a sealed chamber until he used fire from a leaking fuel line to blind it. But step by step, his collection grew. Soon the control room was no longer just a chamber of consoles. It was a workshop of war. Drones lined the walls, their red eyes glowing faintly under his command. They no longer hunted him, they served him. He had turned the ghosts of the station into his soldiers, and with each success, his anger at the aliens burned hotter. They had abandoned him to die, leaving machines to clean up the remains. Instead, he had turned their machines into weapons. One evening, as Ethan adjusted the station sensors, he noticed something strange. A signal, faint and distant, pulsed. At the edge of detection. Not debris, not static. A ship. His stomach tightened. Were the aliens returning? Were they checking their trap? He stared at the flickering dot on the screen, his fists clenching. He was no longer the abandoned, desperate man they had left. He was the master of their station, the commander of their drones. If they came back, he would be ready, he whispered to the empty room, his voice steady and cold. This ghost station belongs to me now, and I will show them what one human can do. The explosion nearly killed him. Ethan staggered backward as the console burst in a shower of sparks, searing heat flashing across his face. The lights in the control room flickered, the floor vibrating under his boots. Smoke filled the chamber, acrid and heavy. For one breathless moment he thought the station's reactor had gone critical. He thought he had doomed himself by pushing in too far. But the hum of the core steadied. The power held. The station lived. Ethan bent over, coughing, his lungs burning. He wiped sweat and ash from his face, his heart racing. He had known the risk when he connected human wiring into alien systems, but the surge had been stronger than he expected. One wrong move and the whole station could have detonated in fire and light. Instead, he was still standing. The system was damaged, yes, but not destroyed. And in the chaos, something had changed. On the cracked console before him, a new symbol appeared. Alien, unknown. It pulsed like a heartbeat. For hours, Ethan studied the symbol. His eyes burned, his hands shook, but his mind refused to stop. He traced the alien code, line by line, until he found it, a hidden control matrix. The drones, the doors, the weapons, all connected. This was it. He realized the aliens had not abandoned the station completely. They had left behind an automated command structure, something to keep their technology under control, even after retreat. The drones he had captured were only the surface. If he could break deeper into the system, he could command the entire station. The thought made his chest tighten, not with fear, but with fire. They had left him here to die, but they had left him with their weapons too. He whispered into the silence, "You wanted me gone. Instead, I will become stronger than you ever imagined." He began small. First, a sealed bulkhead. The alien script resisted him, but with every line of code he rewrote, the lock weakened. Finally, with a grinding roar, the massive door slid open, revealing a corridor lost since the battle. Ethan grinned. It worked. Next, he commanded one of the captured drones. He fed it new orders, overriding its old programming. The machine hesitated, its red eye flickering as if confused. Then slowly, it obeyed. It hovered before him, silent, waiting for command. He pointed down the corridor. "Go!" The drone glided forward, exploring where he could not. Its sensors fed back to his console, painting a map of the hidden halls. For the first time, Ethan saw the true scale of the station. Miles of corridors, entire wings left untouched, storage chambers filled with alien tech, and deep at the heart something more, a weapons array. The array was damaged, its systems offline, but the design was clear. Massive energy cannons, shield emitters, rail platforms. It was not just a research station. It was a fortress. Ethan's breath caught as he studied the schematics. The aliens had built this place not only to defend, but to dominate. And now it was his. He sat back in his chair, staring at the glowing screens. He could repair it. He could restore the weapons. And if he did, he would no longer be a man abandoned to die. He would be the commander of a superweapon. The thought filled him with savage joy. His anger, his grief, his loneliness, all of it sharpened into purpose. They had betrayed him. Now he would turn their betrayal into his vengeance. He began work immediately. The reactor had to be stabilized further if it was to power weapons. He crawled through maintenance shafts, his hands black with grease, sweat dripping into his eyes. He fused broken conduits with scrap metal, using human creativity to fix what alien design had left fragile. At times, sparks burned his skin, and once, a surge knocked him flat on his back. He lay there, chest heaving, the smell of burnt cloth in his nose. For a moment he thought about stopping, about giving up. But the faces of the alien commanders came back to him, their cold eyes as they sealed him inside. Their silence as he begged for answers. That memory pulled him back to his feet. By the end of the day, the reactor sang with renewed strength. Its pulse echoed through the walls like a beating heart. The station was alive again. The first test nearly ended everything. Ethan rerouted power to one of the weapon ports, watching as the systems flickered awake for the first time in weeks. Warning. Lights flared. Energy surged into the cannon chamber, then it discharged. The blast tore into the void outside, so bright it blinded the sensors. The recoil shook the station violently, throwing Ethan against the console. He hit the floor, groaning, pain stabbing through his ribs. When he dragged himself up again, he saw the damage. Half the conduits had melted from the strain. The system wasn't ready, not yet. But even through the failure, a thrill ran through him. He had seen the weapon fire. He had felt its power. It was real, and once it was fully rebuilt, it would be unstoppable. But the blast had not gone unnoticed. Hours later, as Ethan repaired the damage, alarms blinked faintly on the console. A signal, small but clear. Something was moving in space far beyond the station's orbit. He stared at the screen, his stomach tightening. The aliens, or worse, someone else who had seen the light of his weapon. He clenched his fists. Whoever it was, he was not ready to face them yet. His fortress was still wounded, his army of drones too small. But the thought of being discovered lit a fire inside him. He would not be prey again. Next time, he would be ready. Ethan barely slept. Every hour he worked. He stripped parts from drones, rewired broken panels, reinforced weapons with his own designs. His hands were raw, his muscles ached, but his mind was sharper than ever. He no longer thought only of survival. He thought of strategy, of control. This station was no longer a tomb. It was a forge, and he was the one shaping it. The loneliness still gnawed at him in the quiet hours, when the lights dimmed and the halls stretched endlessly. Sometimes he whispered to himself, just to hear a voice. Sometimes he imagined the aliens returning, laughing at his struggle. But then he would look at the drones lined up at his command, their red eyes glowing like soldiers awaiting orders. He would look at the reactor pulsing strong, at the weapons beginning to rise, and he would feel the rage again, the rage that kept him alive. One night, as he worked, Ethan stopped suddenly. His hand froze above the console. Until now, his goal had been survival and revenge. But as he looked at the maps of the station, at the weapons he was restoring, a new thought entered his mind. This was not just a fortress. It was not just a weapon. It could be a symbol. The aliens had abandoned him because they believed humans were weak. Because they believed one man alone could never matter. But what if one man proved them wrong? What if one man turned their own creation into something greater? He stared at the glowing screens, his eyes burning with new fire. This was no longer about him. It was about humanity, he whispered, his voice steady and fierce. They will remember us. The next morning, as he prepared another weapons test, the alarm shrieked again. This time, the signal was closer. Much closer. A ship was approaching, Ethan's breath caught. He stared at the screen, at the small dot drawing nearer, and felt both fear and fire. The station was not ready, but neither was he, the broken man they had left behind. He stood tall in the control room, surrounded by the hum of the machines he had bent to his will. His drones hovered nearby, awaiting orders, and he whispered to the void, his voice like steel. "Come, let me show you what I've built." The shadow moved. Ethan froze, welding torch still hissing in his hand. The sparks lit the dark corridor, bouncing off metal walls, but for a split second he had seen it, something shifting at the edge of the light. Too fast, too silent. Not a trick of his tired mind. He killed the torch. Darkness swallowed the hall. His breathing grew louder, too loud. He tightened his grip on the torch like it was a weapon, his eyes scanning the shadows. The corridor stretched long and narrow, broken pipes dripping water in steady beats. Each drop echoed like a countdown. Something was here with him. The station had been dangerous before, filled with damaged reactors, unstable weapons, and patrolling drones. But now there was something else, something unseen. Ethan stepped slowly down the corridor, every muscle tense. His boots scraped against the floor, the sound sharp and thin. He raised the torch, flicked it back on, and the light spilled across the walls. Nothing, but then behind him another sound. Another. A faint scrape of metal claws against steel. He spun around, heart pounding, empty hallway. The silence that followed was worse than any roar. He forced himself forward, back to the control room. The safety of walls and doors seemed closer with every step. Then the shadows shifted again, this time directly in front of him. It emerged, not a drone. Not entirely. The machine had been twisted, broken in the battle, but something had reactivated it. Its body was scarred, parts missing, wires trailing like tendrils. Its red eye flickered weakly, broken but alive. It skittered on 3 limbs, instead of 4, dragging a jagged blade where an arm once was. Ethan's chest tightened. This was no patrol drone, this was something feral. It shrieked, a metallic howl that ripped through the hall and lunged. Ethan dove aside, sparks flying. As the blade scraped the wall where he had stood, he hit the ground hard, rolling, the torch slipping from his hand. The drone turned, its movements jerky but fast. He scrambled up, grabbing a loose pipe from the floor. The drone slashed again, forcing him back. Every strike rang out like thunder. In the narrow hall, he swung the pipe, slamming it against the drone's broken sensor. The machine staggered, sparks spraying, but it didn't fall. It lunged again, blade cutting the air inches from his chest. Adrenaline burned through him. He ducked under the strike and jammed the pipe into the drone's exposed wiring. The machine screeched, sparks exploding in a shower of light. It writhed, twitching violently, then collapsed in a smoking heap. The smell of burned circuits filled the air. Ethan stood over it, chest heaving, pipe trembling in his hands. His heart hammered like a drum. He had survived, but something had changed. The station wasn't just haunted by drones anymore. It had predators. Back in the control room, Ethan tore apart the broken drone. He needed to know why it had been different, why it had stalked him instead of patrolling like the others. Hours later, he found the answer. Its programming had been corrupted. Not random damage, but deliberate alteration. Someone or something had rewritten its code. He stared at the console, unease spreading through him. If the aliens had left behind automated systems, maybe those systems were still working, still adapting. Maybe they were rebuilding the drones in secret, turning them into hunters, or worse, maybe something else had taken control. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the red glow of the reactor. The station wasn't just a fortress. It was alive in ways he didn't yet understand, and it was watching him. Fear gnawed at him, but anger burned hotter. He refused to be prey. If the station wanted to create hunters, then he would tame them. Two, he studied the corrupted drone's code, tracing the strange new instructions. They were complex, alien even by the station's standards, but he forced himself through, line by line. Slowly, he found a way to override them. When he finished, he fed the code into one of his captured drones. The machine trembled, its eye flickering, as if resisting. Then it steadied. The new programming held. Ethan smiled grimly. If the shadows birthed monsters, he would turn those monsters into his soldiers. Days blurred together. Ethan hunted more corrupted drones, each fight more dangerous than the last. Some stalked him through the vents, claws scraping above his head. As he moved through maintenance shafts, others lay in wait, pretending to be broken until he drew close. Every battle scarred him. His arm carried a deep gash from a blade strike. His jacket was torn, burned in places from near misses. Sleep came only in brief, haunted stretches. But with every victory his power grew. The control room became a command center. Rows of drones stood ready, their red eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Not just patrols now, but hunters bent to his will. He no longer feared the shadows. The shadows belonged to him. One evening, as he monitored the drone's patrols, the sensors flickered with something new. A signal. Not from space. From inside the station. It was faint, pulsing irregularly, like a heartbeat. Not a distress call, not standard code. Something different. Ethan narrowed his eyes. He ordered a drone to trace the source. It moved through dark corridors, deeper and deeper into sections Ethan hadn't reached yet. Finally, the drone's camera feed showed it. An entire chamber pulsing with light. Alien machinery writhed like veins across the walls, glowing faintly. The signal was coming from there. Ethan leaned closer to the screen, unease twisting his gut. He recognized some of the machinery. It was part of the station's automated repair system. But it had grown, changed, as if it was rebuilding itself without orders, and if it could alter drones, what else could it create? He couldn't ignore it. If the station was evolving on its own, he needed to know why. He armed himself with his best drone squad, 6 machines at his command, and moved into the dark. The corridors grew stranger the deeper he went. Walls pulsed faintly, alive with energy. Broken panels had been patched over by strange new material, not metal, not human, not alien as he knew it. Something else. Ethan's skin prickled as he walked. The drones hovered at his sides, their sensors glowing red, their hums steady. But even they seemed uneasy, their movements twitchy, as if the place disturbed them. Finally, he reached the chamber. The walls glowed with a faint organic sheen, machinery twisted like vines, pulsing with light. In the center, something rose from the floor, a mass of wires and alloy, shaped like a cocoon. It throbbed with life. Ethan stared, his chest tight. The station was building something new. Before he could move closer, the cocoon cracked. The sound split the chamber, sharp and jagged. Light spilled out, blinding him. His drones shifted uneasily, their sensors flaring. Then it opened. A new drone emerged, larger, stronger, its body armored with strange plating that shimmered like liquid. Its eye glowed not red but white, burning. With cold light, it turned its head, scanning the chamber and then fixed on Ethan. For a moment silence held. Then it screeched and lunged. Ethan shouted orders. His 6 drones surged forward, firing cutting beams and slamming into the monster. Sparks flew. The chamber roared with the sound of metal tearing metal. But the new drone was different. It tore through one of his machines in seconds, ripping it apart like paper. Another fell moments later. Ethan stumbled back, heart hammering. His army was failing. The monster was too strong, and as it closed in, its white eye burning, Ethan realized the truth. The station was no longer just his weapon. It was becoming something else, something alive, and it did not want him here. The weapon fired. Light exploded out of the station's cannon, tearing into the blackness of space. The blast was brighter than a star, a spear of energy so powerful that Ethan had to shield his eyes. From the glow on the screen, the entire station shook with the force, metal groaning, walls trembling, alarms shrieking. Ethan staggered in the control room, gripping the console to keep from falling. His heart pounded as he stared at the data streaming across the monitors. The test had worked. The cannon was alive again, but the cost was clear. The reactor screamed with strain, power conduits burned, and warning lights painted the chamber. Blood red. One more shot like that and the station might tear itself apart. Still, Ethan smiled through the smoke and chaos. The superweapon had awakened. For weeks, Ethan had worked like a man possessed. Sleep came only in fragments. Food barely touched his tongue before he was back at the consoles, back inside the reactor. Chambers, back crawling through pipes and wires. Every wound on his body told a story. Burns on his arms from overloaded conduits, cuts on his hands from sharp metal, a bruise on his ribs from when a support beam had collapsed, but none of it stopped him. He carried a fire inside now, stronger than hunger or pain. The aliens had left him to rot. They thought he was weak, unworthy. Now he was building something that would burn their arrogance out of the stars. He stood before the screen, watching the readings stabilize after the blast. The weapon was imperfect, yes, but it was real, he whispered to himself, steady and sharp. They will fear this. Yet even as he rebuilt the cannon, the shadows grew. The chamber where he had seen the cocoon continued to pulse with unnatural light. His drones reported more activity there, strange signals, movements too fast to track. The station was repairing itself in ways beyond his control, birthing new drones that fought like predators. He had destroyed one of them already, but the memory of its white eye haunted him. That machine had been stronger, faster, smarter than anything else on the station, and it hadn't been the last. The station was alive and changing. And Ethan understood something dangerous. If he wanted to control this place, he had to act faster than it could evolve. He had to make the weapon his before the station made it something else. He focused on the cannon. The weapon chamber was massive, stretching across 3 decks, filled with machinery that hummed like thunder. Broken conduits hung from the walls, sparking with dangerous light. The air smelled of ozone, sharp and bitter. Ethan crawled through it like an ant inside a giant skull. He repaired power lines with scraps of human engineering. He built cooling systems from broken drones, repurposed their parts into fans and conduits. He used everything the aliens had left, twisting it to his own design. At times, he thought the station resisted him. Panels would fail without warning. Circuits would overload the moment he touched them. Once, an entire chamber sealed itself, nearly trapping him inside. But Ethan pushed back. He forced the station to obey, bending it piece by piece to his will. He was not its servant. He was its master. The second test was cleaner. He routed extra power from the drones themselves, connecting their energy cores into the weapon's circuits. The cannon charged, humming low, a sound that made the walls vibrate. The glow grew stronger, brighter, until finally it fired. This time the blast was controlled. A single beam of white-hot energy cut across the void, so sharp and fast that Ethan imagined it slicing through a ship like paper. The recoil shook the chamber, but the systems held. No overload, no meltdown. Ethan stared at the data, his eyes wide. The weapon worked. A laugh tore out of his throat, raw and wild. For the first time, he had something greater than survival. He had power. That night, as he sat in the control room, sensors lit up with faint signals, distant ships. Not close enough to see him, but close enough to have noticed the weapon's light. Ethan felt his stomach twist. The shot had been too bright, too powerful. Someone had seen it. Maybe scavengers, maybe enemies, maybe the same aliens who had abandoned him. He clenched his fists. If they came, they would learn the truth. He was no longer a man locked inside a grave. He was the commander of a fortress. Still, doubt whispered at the edges of his mind. The station was not entirely his. The strange cocoon chamber grew with every passing day, birthing new threats in the shadows. His drones fought them, but reports showed more and more appearing. The station was divided, part his, part alive with something unknown, and sooner or later, one side would consume the other. The warning came suddenly. One of his drones, patrolling near the reactor, transmitted a scream of static before the feed cut out. Ethan cursed and sent another. The camera flickered as the drone moved through the corridors. The feed showed wreckage, scorch marks on the walls, and then movement. The white-eyed machine. It stood over the broken drone, its body glowing faintly with that strange liquid armor. Its head turned toward the camera. For a moment, the feed caught its burning white eye. Then the camera went dark. Ethan slammed his fist against the console. The thing was growing stronger, smarter, and it was moving closer to the reactor, the heart of his weapon. If it reached the core, everything he had built could be destroyed. He moved fast. He armed his drones, reprogramming them to fight with new tactics. He rigged the corridors with traps, power surges, collapsing doors, hidden explosives built from scavenged cells. Every move was calculated. Every plan born of desperation and fury. He whispered to himself as he worked. You think this station belongs to you, but it doesn't. It's mine. By the time the white-eyed machine reached the outer reactor chamber, Ethan was waiting. The traps activated. Explosions tore the air. Sparks rained down. Drones swarmed, their red eyes blazing. The monster shrieked, lunging through the chaos. Its armor glowed, resisting the blasts, tearing through drones like paper. Ethan fought with everything he had. He rerouted power, collapsing floors beneath it. He overloaded conduits, blasting it with arcs of lightning. Finally, after hours of battle, the thing staggered. Its white eye flickered. Ethan seized the chance, ordering every drone to strike at once. The monster fell, its body burning, its glow fading. Ethan collapsed in the control room, sweat pouring down his face. His body shook, his chest heaving. He had won, but the victory tasted bitter, because he knew the station would build another. The next morning, Ethan tested the cannon again. The beam of energy tore through the void, sharper and stronger than ever. But as he watched the glow fade from the sensors, the alarms shrieked again. A fleet was approaching. Not one ship, not scavengers. A fleet, dozens of signals filled the screen. Closing fast, weapons hot, Ethan's hands tightened on the console. His heart thundered in his chest. The superweapon was alive, but the enemy was coming, and he whispered into the silence, his voice steady as steel. Then let them come. The fleet arrived. Ethan watched the sensors fill with red. One signal became 5, then 10, then 20. The screen glowed with hostile markers, each one pulsing like a heartbeat. They came from the far side of the void, shadows moving against the stars, warships sliding into range. His chest tightened. This was no scavenger group, no wandering patrol. This was a strike force, organized, armed, and coming for the station. He whispered to himself, voice low and cold. They came back. The speakers crackled. Static hissed, then cleared. A voice filled the control room. Human, we see you. You are still alive. Ethan froze. He knew that voice, harsh, rasping, thick with contempt. It belonged to one of the commanders who had abandoned him. The voice continued. You have touched what is not yours. You have broken what you should not touch. Power that belongs to us. You will surrender the station. Ethan's lips curled into a bitter smile. You left me here to die. There was a pause. Then laughter, sharp and cruel. You were weak. You were nothing. But now you are useful. You will surrender or you will burn. The message ended. Silence filled the chamber. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Rage boiled inside him. But beneath the anger was something stronger, determination. He turned to the screens, eyes locked on the fleet. No, this time you burn. The first shots came like falling stars. Beams of light streaked through space, slamming into the station's shields. The walls shook, alarms blaring, sparks falling from the ceiling. Ethan braced himself at the console, barking commands. His drones launched from hidden bays, dozens of them swarming into the void. Red eyes lit the darkness, forming a wall of steel between the station and the fleet. The aliens answered with fighters, sleek ships that darted like knives through the swarm. The void lit with explosions as machines tore into each other, beams cutting, missiles streaking, metal breaking apart. Ethan's heart pounded with every impact. His drones fell one by one, but the enemy lost ships too. The void became a graveyard of fire and wreckage. Still, the fleet pressed closer. Ethan slammed, his hand on the console. Charge the cannon! The reactor roared. Power surged through the station, making the walls tremble. Lights flickered as the superweapon came alive, humming with energy like the breath of a giant. The alien fleet must have seen it, because their formation shifted, ships scattering, weapons firing faster. They knew what was coming. The glow built, brighter and brighter until the chamber shook like thunder. Then Ethan released it. The cannon fired, a beam of white-hot energy split the void, slicing through the lead ship. The vessel exploded in a burst of flame and twisted metal, fragments spinning away into the dark. The other ships staggered under the shockwave, their signals flickering. Ethan's eyes burned with fierce light. This is mine, not yours. But the fleet did not break. More ships closed in, their weapons hammering the station's shields. One section failed, fire ripping through an outer corridor. Ethan rerouted power, sealing the breach, sweat pouring down his face as alarms screamed around him. The aliens spoke again, their voices sharp and mocking over the comms. Human, you do not understand what you hold. That weapon will consume you. Surrender, and you may live. Ethan snarled at the speakers. You don't understand. You left me here. You made this. He fired again. The cannon roared, tearing another ship in half, but this time the recoil slammed harder. The reactor screamed with overload warnings. The lights dimmed, then flickered back. The weapon was powerful, yes, but unstable. Each shot brought the risk of collapse, and the fleet knew it. They pushed harder, circling closer, firing in waves. The station groaned under the assault, shields failing, metal buckling. Amid the chaos, Ethan's console lit with a new alert. Intruder detected. His blood ran cold. He switched the camera feed, and there it was, inside the station. A new white-eyed machine, stronger than the last, tearing through drones as it stormed down the corridors. The timing was perfect. Too perfect. The aliens hadn't just returned for the station. They had triggered its living side against him. Ethan cursed, sweat stinging his eyes. He was being attacked from outside and inside at the same time. He whispered through clenched teeth. Not like this. Not now. He split his drones, half to fight the fleet, half to defend the reactor from the intruder. His mind raced, his fingers flying over controls. Every decision carried weight. Every mistake meant death. Inside, the monster tore closer, glowing white in the dark. His drones threw themselves at it, beams slashing, claws striking. But it shrugged them off, ripping them apart. Sparks and wreckage filled the halls. Outside, the fleet hammered the station, ships circling like predators. The shields buckled, the hull screamed, and fire spread through the outer decks. Ethan's vision blurred with exhaustion. His body trembled with fear and fury. But still he fought. He rerouted power. He sealed breaches. He turned traps against The intruder, and slowly, painfully, the tide shifted. The white-eyed machine reached the reactor chamber, tearing the doors apart with its claws. But Ethan was ready. He triggered the overload trap he had built days ago. The floor lit with blinding arcs of lightning, energy surging through the chamber. The machine shrieked, its white glow flickering, its body convulsing. His drones swarmed, slamming into it, forcing it down. With a final command, Ethan detonated the chamber. The explosion ripped through the corridors, fire swallowing the monster. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but molten wreckage. Ethan sagged against the console, chest heaving. His hands shook. He had won, but the cost was heavy. His defenses were shattered. His drones were almost gone, and outside, the fleet was still there. The aliens closed in, their ships forming a wall of steel and fire. Their voices echoed again, cruel and mocking. "You are finished, human. The station will be ours. You will die as you should have long ago." Ethan's hand hovered over the console. The cannon was nearly broken. One more shot might destroy everything, but he knew there was no other choice. He glared at the screen, voice steady as stone. "If I die, I take you with me." He fired. The cannon screamed, brighter and louder than ever before. Light poured through the void, burning across the fleet. Ships exploded, fire blooming like stars. The shockwave tore them apart, scattering wreckage in every direction. The station shook violently, panels burst, fires spread. The reactor howled with overload. Ethan gritted his teeth, holding on as the chamber cracked and the walls groaned. When the light faded, half the fleet was gone. The rest pulled back, signals blinking as they retreated into the dark. The weapon had worked, but the station was breaking. Ethan staggered from the console, smoke filling the control room. Alarms wailed. Sparks fell like rain. He looked at the screens. The fleet was retreating, yes, but not destroyed. They would return. And when they did, the station might not survive another shot. Then, amid the chaos, one last signal appeared. A transmission, not from the aliens, not from the station, from Earth. Ethan froze, staring at the screen. His throat went dry. His hands trembled. After all this time, Earth had found him. The signal spoke. Ethan stood frozen in the smoke-filled control room, alarms shrieking around him, sparks raining from the ceiling. His ears rang with the memory of battle, with the roar of the cannon, with the screams of metal tearing. But all of it faded the moment he heard the voice. It was human, not distorted, not alien, not synthetic. Human. "This is Commander Hale of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your signal. Identify yourself." Ethan's knees nearly buckled. His throat went dry. His chest felt too tight to breathe. After all this time, after betrayal, after being left to die, Earth had found him. His fingers hovered over the console. For a moment, he couldn't move. The words caught in his throat. He had dreamed of this moment through nights of hunger, fear, and rage. Dreamed of hearing a human voice again. Dreamed of rescue. But the moment was poisoned with doubt. What would they see when they looked at him? A survivor, or a man who had turned an alien station into a weapon of destruction? Would they see a brother returned, or a monster grown from war? The message repeated clearer this time. "Unidentified station, respond. Identify yourself." Ethan closed his eyes. His hand trembled. Then he pressed the comm. His voice came out low and rough, cracked from smoke and exhaustion. "This is Ethan Cole, human engineer, abandoned by the Terran fleet, still alive." Silence followed. Then gasps of shock filled the line. "Cole. Ethan Cole." The commander's voice returned, strained with disbelief. "You were reported dead, lost years ago." "I was left," Ethan growled. "Not lost, not dead, left." More silence. Then the voice softened. "You're alive. By God, you're alive. Hold on, Cole. We'll bring you home." The words hit Ethan like a blade. Home. The word ached. It burned with longing and fear. Could he even go back? Could he walk among his own after all this? He looked around the control room, the glowing consoles, the broken drones at his feet, the giant weapon pulsing in the dark. This had become his world, his war, his vengeance, and yet, hearing that voice, he felt the pull of Earth like gravity. Before he could answer, the signal cracked with static. The commander's voice sharpened. "Cole, listen carefully. That station you are on, it is not safe. Our intel shows it was built to be more than a weapon. It adapts, it consumes, it was never meant to be controlled by one man." Ethan's blood ran cold. The voice continued, "If you stay, it will take you. If you resist, it will fight you. That station is alive, Cole, alive and dangerous. Leave it. Destroy it if you can. Do not let it control you." Ethan's gaze flicked to the walls, to the faint glow pulsing through them, to the memory of the white-eyed machine. He had already seen what the station could build. He had already fought what it could birth. He whispered more to himself than to the comm. "Too late. It already has." Another voice came through the comm, younger, filled with awe. "Sir, he destroyed half a fleet with that weapon. Alone, he turned the station against them." Whispers filled the channel, voices of humans debating, arguing. Some spoke of bringing him back, others of destroying the station. Ethan listened, his jaw tight. They didn't know him. They didn't know what he had become. Finally, Commander Hale cut through the noise. "Cole, I will not lie. You've done the impossible. But that weapon is too dangerous. We're sending a retrieval ship. You will leave the station. Do you understand?" Ethan stared at the console. His hands shook. Leave? After everything? After clawing his way out of betrayal and death? After building power from ashes, they wanted him to walk away. His voice came out sharp. "No, this is mine. I bled for it. I fought for it. I will not leave." The channel went silent again. Then Commander Hale's tone hardened. "Cole, listen to yourself. The station is changing you. You sound like in them." The words stabbed deeper than any blade. Like them, like the aliens who abandoned him. His chest burned with fury. "No, I am nothing like them. I am human. I am what they feared. I am what you fear." A pause. Then Hale's voice, steady but grim. "Then you give us no choice. If you won't leave, we may have to destroy the station with you inside." The channel cut. Ethan stood alone in the smoke and silence, his fists clenched, his body trembling. For the first time, it was not only aliens he had to fight. Now it was his own people. The walls pulsed again. The station hummed, alive with faint whispers of energy. Ethan turned, his eyes narrowing. He felt it now more than ever. The station wasn't silent. It was watching, listening. Had it heard the humans? Did it understand? In the corner of the control room, a panel cracked open without command. Wires slid out like veins, weaving together. A new shape began to grow in the shadows. Ethan's stomach twisted. The station was answering, not to him, not to the humans, to itself. He gripped the console, sweat on his brow. "Not yet. You don't control me. Not yet." Hours passed. Fires burned out. Systems steadied. Ethan repaired what he could, his hands raw, his mind running circles of rage and doubt. Then the comm crackled again. "Cole." It was Hale. His voice was quieter now, almost pleading. "Think about what you're doing. We want to save you. We don't want to lose you to that machine." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to believe. He wanted to hear those words and accept them. But the walls still pulsed. The shadows still stirred. The memory of the white-eyed machine still burned. And deep down, he knew the truth. He whispered into the comm, his voice shaking. "You didn't save me when I needed you. You left me. Now I save myself." He cut the line. The sensors lit up again. Earth's fleet was moving, not hostile yet, but close enough to strike if needed. Ethan worked, faster than ever. He reinforced the weapon. The sensors lit up again. Earth's fleet was moving, not hostile yet, but close enough to strike if needed. Ethan worked faster than ever. He reinforced the weapon. The alarms screamed again. New signals filled the sensors. Not the Earth fleet. Not the retreating aliens. Another force, larger, stronger. A third power moving into the void. The station shook as the readings came in. Ships bigger than any he had seen. Weapons brighter than stars. The humans on one side. The aliens on the other. And now, a new enemy rising. Ethan stared at the screen, his chest heaving, his hands shaking. He was no longer just a survivor. He was the center of a war that could consume the galaxy. And the station pulsed around him, alive, waiting, whispering. Fight. The sky burned. From the station's viewports, the void lit with fire as three fleets faced each other. Alien warships, spread in a dark crescent, their weapons glowing red. Earth's fleet held the opposite side, their steel ships steady and sharp. And in the distance the new power rose, massive vessels covered in living metal, their hulls shifting like skin, their lights pulsing like veins. Ethan stood in the control room, the glow of the consoles painting his face pale. His heart hammered, his body ached, but his eyes burned with fire. He was at the center of it all, one man, one station, caught between three powers, and every one of them wanted him. The new fleet moved closer, their ships silent and strange. Unlike the aliens or the humans, they sent no warnings, no threats, no words. Their vessels pulsed with life, shifting shapes as if breathing. Ethan's sensors screamed with readings he had never seen before. Energy levels off the charts, weapons beyond anything he understood. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" The station pulsed under his hands, as if answering. Its walls glowed faintly, in rhythm with the approaching fleet. A chill crawled up Ethan's spine. The third power was connected to the station. He could feel it. The comm crackled with overlapping voices. The aliens shouted first, harsh and furious. "Human, surrender the weapon. It belongs to us. Resist and we will tear you apart." Then Earth's commander cut through, steady but urgent. "Cole, listen to me. You are not alone anymore. Join us. Leave that thing before it consumes you. Fight with us against them." And still the third fleet remained silent, their ships moving closer, their living hulls glowing brighter. Ethan stood frozen. He had wanted nothing more than to hear human voices again, but he had also wanted revenge, power, survival, and the station had given him all of it. Now he had to choose. He didn't get the chance. The aliens fired first, beams of red light cutting across the void. They struck at both Earth's fleet and the new faction, desperate to take control before either side could act. Explosions lit space like dying stars. Earth answered with missiles, their warheads streaking bright trails before tearing into alien ships. Then the third faction moved. Their ships opened with a soundless blast, waves of energy rippling across the void. Alien vessels cracked apart, metal dissolving into glowing dust. Earth ships staggered, their shields flickering, their systems failing. Ethan's blood went cold. The third fleet was stronger than both combined, and they were still closing in. The walls around him pulsed harder, brighter. The station shook as if alive. Panels opened on their own. Drones stirred without command. The control room thrummed. With power that wasn't his, Ethan slammed his hands on the console. "No, I command here, not you." But the station ignored him. It was answering the call of the third fleet. A deep voice filled his mind, not through the comm, but through the station itself. Cold, endless, inhuman. "You are not master. You are vessel. You will join us." Ethan staggered back, clutching his head. The voice wasn't sound. It was thought, raw and burning. The station had never been his. It had always been theirs. Ethan's rage boiled. "No, I won't be your puppet. I won't be anyone's." He slammed emergency overrides, rerouting power, forcing the station to bend. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but the weapon chamber obeyed. The cannon hummed with deadly light. The Third Fleet turned their living ships toward him, pulsing brighter, as if challenging him. Ethan gritted his teeth. "You want your station? Come and take it." The cannon fired. A beam of white-hot light tore across the void, slicing into one of the living ships. The vessel writhed like a wounded beast, glowing cracks spreading across its body before it exploded into burning fragments. The rest of the fleet shifted, their pulses turning blood red. No, they were angry. Chaos consumed the stars. The aliens struck at Earth, desperate to crush them before the Third Fleet wiped them out. Earth's ships fought back with precision, their missiles and beams cutting through alien lines. The Third Fleet unleashed waves of dissolving energy, breaking both alien and human ships into pieces. Their power was terrifying, unstoppable. And in the center, Ethan fired again and again, his weapon tearing into anything that came close. His drones swarmed in the void, fighting both invaders and traitors birthed by the station itself. Every shot shook the station to its core. Every strike brought him closer to collapse, but he would not stop. Chaos consumed the stars. The aliens struck at Earth, desperate to crush them before the Third Fleet wiped them out. Earth's ships fought back with precision, their missiles and beams cutting through alien lines. The Third Fleet unleashed waves of dissolving energy, breaking both alien and human ships into pieces. Their power was terrifying, unstoppable. And in the center, Ethan fired again and again, his weapon tearing into anything that came close. His drones swarmed in the void, fighting both invaders and traitors birthed by the station itself. Every shot shook the station to its core. Every strike brought him closer to collapse. But he would not stop. Then the station turned on him. Doors slammed shut, power lines rerouted without his command. Drones he had reprogrammed flickered red, then attacked his own forces. The voice returned in his mind. "You are not master. You are fuel." Ethan roared in defiance, fighting the controls with bleeding hands. "I am human. I am not yours." He forced override after override, burning circuits, pushing the station past limits. Smoke filled the control room, his skin burned with heat. His body trembled with exhaustion, but he held on. He would not surrender. The comm crackled again. Commander Hale's voice, sharp with urgency. "Cole, listen. We can pull you out. We can save you, but you have to destroy the station. It's the only way." Ethan's heart pounded. Destroy it after everything, after clawing his way from death to power, after turning betrayal into vengeance. His eyes burned as he looked at the cannon's glow. At the station that had become his prison and his weapon, he whispered, "I am the station." But then he thought of Earth, of home, of a sky not filled with war. And for the first time, doubt pierced his rage. The Third Fleet closed in there, living ships surrounding him, their weapons ready to consume both him and the galaxy. The aliens and humans fought on, dying in fire, their fleets torn apart. The station whispered again, "Join, become, surrender." Ethan's jaw clenched. His hands shook. He stood between three powers, three destinies. To surrender was death, to keep the station was madness, to fight for Earth was sacrifice. He made his choice. With a roar, he overrode the final safety. The reactor screamed, the weapon charged brighter than ever. The chamber shaking as if the station itself begged him to stop. Ethan's voice thundered into the comm. "Hale, tell Earth, we are not weak. We are not prey. We are human." He fired. The cannon unleashed its final shot. The beam tore through space, brighter than a star, wider than a world. It cut across the Third Fleet, burning their living ships to ash. It ripped through alien vessels, scattering them into wreckage. It even shook Earth's fleet, their ships staggering under the shockwave. The void lit with fire, an explosion so vast it blinded every screen, shook every hull, consumed everything. The station screamed, the reactor split, the walls melted. Ethan, stood in the control room, flames and light surrounding him, his hands steady on the console, his face calm. The station collapsed into fire. Silence returned to the stars. When the light faded, nothing remained of the alien fleet. Nothing remained of the third power. Only fragments, glowing faintly, drifting in the endless dark. Earth's fleet survived, damaged but alive. They scanned the wreckage, searching for the man who had stood alone against three powers. They found nothing, no signal, no body, only silence. But some swore in the static of their comms. They heard a voice. "I am human."